Welcome back to the Dat Chat podcast, episode 7, live from the NOLA Brewing Tap Room in Uptown New Orleans, the greatest city on the planet. I'm your co-host, Jeff Duncan, joined once again by the inimitable Clyde Verdun, and, of course, our guest host, Sean Fazende from Fox 8. Welcome, guys. Another Thursday, another live action of football, and also great beer, great food.
Yeah, the traffic was so bad getting here, you figured everybody else was coming to get wings, too. Wings and
free
beer.
wings. Did I hear free wings are on the menu tonight?
As if we couldn't have put it out there in any kind of social post, tweet, whatever we could have done. Nothing but wings all day.
And I think I'm going to partake at some point because the NOLA East sauce, I keep bringing that up, on that McClure's barbecue. The wings they have here is fantastic. All the sauces are great.
They better have ranch today. We were out of ranch 2 weeks ago, though. I think, or something like that.
That's all right. That's because probably Luke probably ate it all or something.
Fair. He's the one
ate us out of that. But, look, we're back at NOLA Brewing. We always have a great time here tonight leading up to Thursday Night Football. Tonight, we got the Patriots and the Colts.
Great game.
AFC East game. So come on out. If you're out driving around right now, you hear our podcast, join us because it'll always be good. We'll be hanging around a little while after the show, partaking in some of the food and some of the beer. And, look, they got a lot of things going on here. I wanted to bring up something that's on the calendar called Shoptoberfest. I ran into this today. I was out on Magazine Street at one of my favorite breakfast joints that Donald Link owns called La Boulangerie, and saw this sign in the window, Shoptoberfest is going to be here October 13th. That's Saturday, October 13th from 4 to 9 here at the tap room. Come on out. It'll be great food. They're going to serve like German fare. Have a specialty beer for it. So lots of things on the agenda here at NOLA Brewing, and that's one that I'm going to try and partake in if I'm in town because I guarantee you the food, I think Adam Biederman of Company Burger is going to be serving the menu. And if you've ever been to Company Burger, you know that stuff rocks.
Yes.
And Adam's a great – and little known fact about Adam Biederman, the chef and the proprietor of Company Burger, was a backup offensive lineman at the University of Georgia.
Wow.
So he's a Bulldog, and I'm sure he's going to have divided allegiances in a couple of weeks, Clyde, when the Bulldogs come to town, hopefully against the unbeaten LSU Tigers. But they got a little bit of a challenge this week coming up down at Florida at the Swamp. We'll see. We'll talk about that later in the podcast. We got lots to talk about on this show. We've got the Saints, obviously a big Monday night game against the Redskins, lots of buzz. Sean, you just came from the locker room. I just came from the locker room. Everyone talking about Drew Brees and his pursuit of Peyton Manning's all-time passing record. I think he's going to get it. He need 201 yards to break the record? I'm going out on a limb. I'm saying Drew Brees gets it this week. I know it's crazy. What do you think?
We were talking in the locker room today. It was not if, it's at what point in the game does he get it? Maybe mid-third quarter?
That's the question.
Late third quarter?
That's the thing. I think about third quarter.
But here's the thing, guys, and I think Sean Payton made a pretty good point about this. You don't want this record in a loss, right? I mean, it's a hallowed record, but you kind of want to get that victory as well. But locker room was great. Drew, when he first started talking to us, we thought he was going to go into one game at a time mode because the first couple of questions,
he was being politically
pretty
correct,
buttoned up, and then all of a sudden, somebody asked the right question, and he just started opening up about the past, the road to get here, that sort of thing. Look, we've seen him break a lot of records, and some were unbelievable, but this is the one as far as I'm concerned. The all-time leader in passing yards. I don't care about the era he plays in. Still, he didn't start in this era. He started well before this era. So it's truly amazing to watch what we've been able to witness. And I think sometimes we take it for granted, but I think this will be an opportunity to kind of pause and just realize what we had in front of us for the last, 14 years, 13 years?
Yeah, look, it's one of the more hallowed records, I think, in sports, certainly in the NFL. I mean, he's broken a lot of records, but this is kind of one of those ones that's going to stand. And here's the crazy thing, guys. Drew Brees isn't breaking this like he's not limping to the finish line here like some of these other guys that have had it, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning. Drew's going to play for at least another year or two, I think at least. I mean, he could put another 10,000 yards on this thing.
Yeah.
He could put it out of reach, I think. I think there's a realistic chance, although the way Patrick Mahomes is playing, who knows. But I think there's a realistic chance that he could put a record up so massive that no one could ever break it.
Yeah, we were talking in the Fox 8 sports office. We were trying to figure out, because we were looking at the list, the only one realistically given the fact when Brees would eventually retire and who's young enough to possibly chase him, the only name we could come up with that may have a slight chance was Matt Stafford, because he was still young enough and he puts up a lot of big numbers to where maybe if he stretched into his 40s, maybe he would have a chance. But I'm with you, Jeff. Once he finishes and he hangs it up and whatever that number is, it's going to be a while before someone catches him.
Yeah, and it's funny today. Brees is always going to say the right things. He's senatorial in his press conferences. He's like a politician. But you're right. Something clicked on the button today, and he opened up, and he was very, expansive in his answers about his career. He doesn't like to reflect because he's in the middle of his career, and I understand that. But he also understood how significant this record is. And I thought he was dynamic today. I mean, dynamite with his answers today, talking about how Sean Payton, what he had meant to his career, how Sean Payton could have picked any quarterback. When he came here in 2006, he picked Brees. It was a perfect marriage of offensive system and quarterback. And one of the things I'm writing for this weekend is, I really believe Drew Brees is underrated. I think he's a guy that we all love him here. Everybody knows about him here. He's not underrated in New Orleans. But nationally, the guy's never won the MVP. I think he's the greatest player to never win an MVP award. He might win one this year. Who knows if things keep going the way the Saints are rolling. But nationally, I don't think he gets his due because I think he gets labeled as a system quarterback.
Which is so unfair.
It's just ridiculous. He was labeled that at Purdue.
And if you were to poll national pundits without a connection to New Orleans, a strong connection to New Orleans, and they put their Mount Rushmore quarterbacks, I think it'd be hard to find one national pundit that would put Brees on there, and that's a shame. When you talk about
Montana, United,
completions, passing yards. I'm not sure where he's at in terms of passing touchdowns, but I'm sure he's close in that
regard.
He's
like a year away from breaking that one.
He's a year away from that one. Yes, incredibly underrated, and a guy that's just – I was thinking about this on the way over here. Can you recall a Brees slump in New Orleans? I don't ever recall him having a few bad games here and there, but he's never had a quote-unquote slump where you thought maybe it's time to maybe put a backup in. You've never had that here.
And it's interesting that you say that because I found this today when I was on Twitter. I know you guys are familiar with Good Morning Football on the NFL Network. Well, apparently Kyle Brandt, and they made a card out of this today. And I posted to the Saints account with the text saying, well, at least we're finally starting to get somewhere. And I think it'll make sense once I read the quote. I think it's worth asking if Drew Brees is the greatest quarterback of all time. I can make a case, I think, over everybody except Tom Brady. Drew Brees or Peyton Manning, I'll take Drew Brees right now 100%. That's from Kyle Brandt. So, it's interesting that we're talking about this now, knowing that he is on the cusp of basically eclipsing this milestone and shattering it to all get out. But it's weird that we're still talking about this in now like year 14, year 15, and with still some years to go, that we're still having the conversation of whether or not, do you have to feel a pull to put Drew? No, absolutely not. Drew, if you, by the numbers, by the era of NFL that he has clearly been dominant in since 2005 and on. I think it's no question that you can say that he's one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in the NFL, bar none, any era whatsoever, just because of what he's been able to do. And I think this goes back to what we talked about, I think, a few weeks ago. Everybody is very hopped up on Aaron Rodgers. And I think Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic quarterback. I think he's a fantastic player. I think what he's been able to do at Green Bay, especially him coming after Brett Favre, has been a huge, huge boon for Green Bay getting – but he has the same number of Super Bowls. So where does that come in? And then it's usually like Tom Brady – and then Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, why? What's the difference? The only difference is that if you want to talk about systems and system quarterbacks and having a system quarterback, we're about to talk about that. We're going to see that tonight in terms of, having a coach who, by all accounts, under Bill Belichick, could have taken many other jobs, took the Indianapolis job, then went right back to being offensive coordinator for New England. If that's not a system, and if Tom Brady is the system quarterback, I don't know what is.
Well, Matt Castle, I think, went 11-5.
Yeah. He did when Brady went
Jimmy
down.
Jimmy Garoppolo didn't look too bad in that system either. So I would argue, and that's actually something I'm going to argue, that those guys were more of a system. Here's a quote I got from Zach Strief. I talked to him about this a year ago. It's a great quote. I'm going to try to back out this weekend. He says, to claim that he's talking about Brees, to claim that he's a product of the system because we throw the ball a lot and he gets a lot of yards is preposterous. The stuff that we are running is the same stuff that other teams are running. We are not running magical plays. We have a quarterback that on the last step of his drop already knows where the ball needs to go and when. and can put it in a window twice the size of a football, that is the system. In other words, Drew Brees is the system. We've all seen from time to time when they've had to plug in guys. Mark Brunell, I can think of. I've seen Chase Daniel in preseason. There's no pixie dust getting sprinkled on the Saints quarterbacks. It's the quarterback.
And look, to me, almost as impressive as his consistency and productivity, and I'm going to knock on wood here, has been his health.
Durability.
Durability has been unbelievable for a guy that age, for a guy that's, playing a violent sport that he plays, a guy that stays in the pocket, he doesn't necessarily run around and avoids hits. So I think he's a guy that, when you add it all up, it truly is remarkable. And Sean Payton has never had to worry about the most important position on the football field at any point in his head coaching career. Any coach in America would sign up for that. He's never even had to have the thought of, okay, maybe I got to put a backup in here right now. So I think he's settled a lot of things. I think he's certainly he's been the guy, the greatest to ever wear the black and gold. I just think he's I think there's a matter-of-factness about what he does, and we kind of expected that where every now and then you got to stop and appreciate it. And I think Monday night we'll get that opportunity.
Yeah, I think he's going to finally get the spotlight he deserves nationally.
Agree.
I think locally we've all been on board for a long time. Nationally, there's always, you're right, there's always the but, right? There's always somebody else. And Clyde, to your point earlier, you talk about why he's not respected. It seems like, there's always someone a little better in one part of the game. He doesn't have the stature of Peyton Manning or Ben Roethlisberger. He doesn't have, the crazy arm strength of Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, the improvisational skills of those guys. And he doesn't have the Super Bowl titles of Brady or Montana. But he's right there with all of them on all those things. And I think when you add it up, you end up with the greatest quarterback of all time.
And this was something that, we were talking about just before we came on about Monday's show. And on Monday's episode, we ended it with Josh Katzenstein asking a really good question. And I think it was a question that I think even for us, we didn't think about in terms of, looking at the overall scope of the season. Could Sean Payton and what he's done in the first 4 games this year so far be the best 4-game stretch, looking as if he is on every cylinder, he's hitting every right play call, he's hitting every right challenge? Is he right now having maybe the best seasons that he's had as a Saints head coach? And it's hard to argue, specifically when I think, that same idea of Drew Brees not having that same respect nationally, I think the same could be said for Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton, when it comes to the litany of head coaches in the NFL, it's usually Belichick, and then whatever coach ends up having the hottest team, and who's that right now? Sean McVay and Andy Reid. And then somehow, Sean Payton gets muddied under the rest of these guys. And it's when you look at how long he's been a head coach in first of all, New Orleans and the NFL, what he's been able to do, helping change that entire atmosphere around
culture.
The Saints.
Perception,
it's hard.
yeah.
It's maybe he has something to prove as well, and maybe this is also a year where we talk about Drew Brees having something to prove. Maybe this is also the same year where Sean Payton's I've been in the game just as long as some of these other cats. I think I deserve some of that respect too, among being considered one of the best coaches in the NFL and maybe the Coach of the Year candidate.
Yeah, and look, I got some numbers for y'all. I've been number crunching. I missed my flight back. I didn't miss my flight. My flight got canceled coming back on Monday from Newark, New Jersey. So I sat in an airport for, good Lord, 4 or 5 hours. I had plenty of time on my hands. So I put together a chart of every player that's ever caught a pass from Drew Brees in his career.
Wow.
And you know what's amazing about this? It's exactly 100 players. I know it goes to 101 there, but exactly 100 players have caught a pass.
That's crazy.
And number one on the list, won't surprise anybody, Marcus Colston's got 706 catches for 9,709 yards. Jimmy Graham second, Lance Moore third, Deborah Henderson, all the people you think. Number 5 already on the list, Mike Thomas.
That's crazy.
He's played
That's
2
insane.
years. 2 years and 4 games. He's already 4th on the list. And then I love this statistical anomaly. Guess who's last on the list? My favorite player of all time, Taysom Hill. 1 catch, -4 yards.
He actually hurt Brees' progress.
Drew Brees comes up 3 yards short and then gets hurt and never eclipses this. It'll all be Taysom Hill's fault.
Well, they really didn't, read that play pretty well. You got to give it to the defense for
he's
sending
hurting
that one out real
he's
quick.
Hurting Drew Brees.
Well, and when we talk about Brees, his presence has allowed this organization to overcome some mistakes in other areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
I look back at that 2015 team, which to me was the least talented team in the Sean Payton era. That team was probably a 3-13, 4-12 team.
That's fair.
With Brees, they were 7-9.
Was that the team that had Bobby Richardson starting?
It was right after they gutted everybody and they got rid of even Jimmy Graham, the Kenny Stills. They got rid of all.
I just remember being in Greenbrier and getting up there. Like I was probably about 4 or 5 days after camp opened, and I walk in. I'm seeing my first lineup of the ones-on-ones, and Bobby Richardson is starting at defensive end. This is an undrafted rookie free agent from Indiana who.
He was one of those preseason heroes that everyone falls in love with.
They're in trouble. If Bobby Richardson is starting on your defensive line, you're in trouble, and they were. It was a long season.
That was the only training camp I can ever remember, looking at Jim Henderson, him saying, there is nothing special about this team other than Drew Brees. And look, that was a 7-9 team. That could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times they were 7-9 because of. Brees brought them up. They could have had one of those bottom out 4-12, 3-13 years.
Agree.
But he's so good, he willed them to victory in a lot of games. And here's an interesting statistical part of his career. Look who's ranked 82nd on the list of Drew Brees receivers. Drew Brees. 5 catches for 14 yards from himself.
Well, sometimes you just
got how crazy he is.
Sometimes you just got to do that. All those passes, like, all right, no one else is going to catch you. You know what? I'm going to do it.
Batted down at the line. He's caught 5 of his own passes. That's amazing.
That is amazing. I'm trying to remember him.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying to remember.
Trust me, I've got it all documented on this. But look, the overwhelming numbers. When you really start thinking about the fact that he could add on to this another 10,000 yards, really it's mind-boggling that he's the only player from the 2001 draft class still playing in the league. Wow. I had a chance, a little tease here for a story that I've got coming out this weekend on the first game he played in. He finally got in 2001, his rookie year. Doug Flutie got hurt. He talked about it today. And had a chance to talk with Terrell Fletcher, the guy that caught his first pass. Terrell Fletcher's been a pastor in San Diego for 15 years. He caught a pass from Drew Brees. 15 years he's been a pastor, and Drew is still slinging it on Sundays while Terrell's preaching.
It just goes back to the longevity and the durability. Usually it's Father Time that steps in and says it's over.
Yeah.
And he's been able to combat that and play just as good now as he has since 29, 30 years old. Look, that 2011 season was remarkable, was unbelievable. Yeah. Probably the best Saints team I've ever witnessed. They lost. Obviously, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but still. But look at his numbers now. 75% completion percentage.
It's insane.
And it's not like he's checking it down to 5-yard out routes and flats. He's putting the ball downfield. So I've always marveled at his completion percentage because he always also led the league in attempts. So it was like you're throwing risky passes and you're still completing them. That just goes to show you how accurate he is.
Yeah, and he's got 8 touchdown passes, no interceptions this year. Very efficient. And look, I pointed it out this past week. One of the plays of the game last week. I'm sure you watched film study. I tweeted it out, but there was a key point in that game. Ted Ginn Jr. back on the hands team. Totally blunders the kickoff.
Yeah.
Here the Giants have scored to cut it. That's when MetLife Stadium finally got roused a little bit. Giants fans are on their feet. He muffs the kickoff. They're on the 2-yard line. Davlin Tomlinson on the first down snap comes in unblocked.
Yeah.
Completely unblocked. Now Max Unger, being a savvy veteran, kind of sees it. Yeah. He trips him, which is illegal, but he did trip him. But the fact is, Brees saw it and was so quick. He got out of the pocket really quick, flushed, and hits Josh Hill for 23 yards.
Yeah. That was basically the kickoff return right there. But getting that was the net yardage you would have gotten.
But if that's Eli Manning,
it doesn't
Eli
matter.
Manning gets sacked. I don't care.
How many quarterbacks do you think in the league could? Literally the only ones I can think of are maybe even Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes.
Cam Jordan probably gets out of it, maybe. He's, athletic enough. It's just the cat-quick reflexes that he has, It was just a remarkable play. That's the kind of play that was off script. It wasn't drawn up that way. Somebody's supposed to block Davlin Tomlinson on the 2-yard line. And Brees makes a 23-yard gain out of nothing and saves the day. Literally, if they get a safety there and they got a punt.
Yes.
Yeah. They could have lost that game easily, that one play. So the guy's remarkable. I mean, I know we've worn him out here for 20 minutes, but it's going to.
He's worth it. I mean, he's worth it.
Yeah, he's going to get his due on Monday night, and I think everybody in New Orleans will be happy about that. Let's talk a little bit about the game itself, though, because the Redskins do come to town off a bye and an impressive win against the Green Bay Packers, who I picked to go to the Super Bowl, and they went there and got dominated by the Redskins. I think this team's better than I gave them credit for, and they've got a stout defense up front, a couple of Alabama guys, Deron Payne, who we all saw in the Sugar Bowl, Jonathan Allen. They still got Ryan Kerrigan. This could be tough sledding, I think, for the Saints running the ball. I think they're going to have to try and run it, though.
And just visualize Saints and Redskins matchups. Beach a miracle. Last year's crazy game. I mean, they got slaughtered when they went to Washington a couple of years ago. I think it was the game before Rob Ryan got fired. Point being, it's never an easy matchup. It always seems to be a tough, almost weird type game. And this is the team. Alex Smith is a very clean, very efficient quarterback. Adrian Peterson's found the fountain of youth. The other running back,
Chris Thompson
is
leading the team in
the ball in
receptions.
The backfield. But you can't get rope-a-doped into thinking that Alex Smith is just a Loya kind of, dink and dunk, because I was just watching the Green Bay game on film. He had 4 or 5 short passes in a row and boom, hit a guy deep for a touchdown. I mean, so he can go big when he has to. This is not going to be an easy chalk up a W. This is going to be a tough game for the Saints to win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it always seems that there's certain teams give the Saints problems. They got another one coming up against Baltimore. Whatever it is about the Beltway area.
And in Minnesota.
Yeah, they struggle against those teams, and I think the Redskins are going to come in here, with a lot of motivation. It's going to be obviously a big spotlight on Drew Brees. They're not going to want to get embarrassed. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, the Saints, 3-1, they've won 3 in a row. But they haven't been dominant at all in any of these games. I mean, their biggest win was last week against the Giants.
You're still waiting for that game, and it just hasn't happened yet. And I think they're getting there. I'm a big believer in where they, especially on the Sean Payton, that first quarter, where are they? Because if they're 3-1 or better, that usually means, okay, they've survived September, the fluctuation of a new season, finding your identity, and you're able to move on. If they're, kind of 1-3, or last year they were 2-2, that was more of an outlier. But still, if they're 3-1 or better at that quarter turn, then they're usually able to turn it on. But still, we've yet to see that game, and I think we're still waiting for it. But there's still some holes that need to be addressed and need to be answered.
And that's where maybe I am with this game specifically, where I feel like this is actually going to be the exact opposite of everything that we've seen the last few times that the Saints and the Redskins have played each other. Specifically, I feel like there's too much on the line. I feel like, and I mean, I know it's possibly partially sacrilege to try and put this game on the level of the Atlanta game, first game back in the Dome. You had so many things going on. There's something about Monday, and I guess because maybe it is on Monday Night Football, maybe because there is something big at stake, at least for the Saints, in terms of like a huge milestone for their Hall of Fame quarterback, or future Hall of Fame quarterback. But I really do feel like the Saints are going to come out, especially after just enough things that we saw from the defense last week. We saw just enough of where this team wants to get to. And, it's like we talked about Monday. It's like if the Saints are playing their best ball in the first quarter of the season, that's not a good omen for the back half, the last 4. Maybe we're starting to see this defense start to get a little bit of that swagger back. And you heard some of those quotes after post-game of like how this defense feels like this is the first time they feel like they played with some energy, finally getting some turnovers, really causing havoc in the backfield. Now, granted, that's Eli Manning, a slow Eli Manning as compared to like what Alex Smith's going to be. But I feel like everybody's going to have an edge about them because of what this game could mean. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's where I feel like we'll see it probably in the first quarter. It'll still be very tight, very tense. That's where I think like that dome magic comes in, where like the crowd gets into it, the defense ends up getting some kind of play, and then from there it's literally nothing but jets and afterburners, and the Saints immediately just start, I'm talking about just tanking all over the field. Drew Brees is on fire. Mark Ingram's going to be back. Obviously, we're going to have to talk about that with him being back. Alvin Kamara is the back that we knew he was going to be. And I think for that, I think it just starts to mushroom to where it's just kind of like score after score after score for the Saints, where this game is out of reach by the third quarter.
Well, I hope so. Out of reach by the third quarter?
No, I maybe out of reach by the third quarter. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
I think the Saints' run defense is officially legit. I was waiting to see a game where they bottled up what I consider an elite running back. I think they had that last week. So I think they can lean on that. If they lean on that, the back end is starting to come around a little bit more. It's not where it needs to be, but I think they're coming around. They really need a pass rush to really help the back end. But still, I think the run defense is officially legit.
I agree 100%. The run defense, I've seen enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've done it now 3 weeks in a row. They've really shut down Saquon Barkley. I mean, the Browns, that was their bread and butter. They couldn't run the ball on the Saints. And, look, I'm still not sold on the pass defense because Odell Beckham Jr. was wide open a few times.
Yeah.
And Eli Manning just didn't get him the ball.
Missed him.
I mean, that's why OBJ was getting frustrated.
He really was, yeah.
I mean, he had tons of opportunities and just didn't get it. And then that opening drive was just like a pitch and catch fest. Mm-hmm. And then the Giants shot themselves in the foot a lot of times. They'd start with a holding call, and next thing you know, they're starting 1st and 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy to play defense when you're 1st and 20. So I'm not sold yet on the pass defense. If I'm playing the Saints, I'm not even trying to run the ball.
Right.
I'm just going to pass every time.
Exactly.
And, that's what the Saints did last year. When they played the Panthers loaded the box. They said, we're not going to let Kamara and Ingram beat us. And Drew Brees just riddled them for 500 yards passing almost.
Yeah.
And the Saints said, we're not even going to try. Why are we going to beat our head against the wall?
Yeah.
We're going to be one-dimensional, but we're going to dominate you. And that's what I would do if I'm playing the Saints. But people want to be balanced. I think Mark Ingram's return this week is going to get overshadowed because of the Brees stuff. But I think it's big for the Saints because now, if you want to do that, if you try to, combat their passing game, they've got two horses that can come after you. I think the offense is really going to take off.
And I think they
now.
can play ball control, which can help that defense out as well.
Big
time.
I
think from an energy standpoint, I think I really felt the absence of Ingram in week 1. There was an energy missing, and you even felt it in week 2. And then it got a little bit better, obviously, on the road in week 3 and week 4. But there's an energy with Mark Ingram, and I think there's a heart and soul with him that I think he brings to this team, and there's an edge. And I think they feed off that. Now, his emergence is interesting because I was asked on a radio show, what do you think about his touches? Do you throw him right in the fire? I think he's going to get 15 carries, 16 carries.
Oh,
I think
no doubt.
He's a high-volume back. I think
he's got fresh legs.
I think he gets his touches pretty much right away with the Saints.
No, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I would feed the beast, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Feed Mark Ingram, take some little pressure off Alvin Kamara. But Kamara did show last week. I mean, in the fourth quarter, he was a monster.
Yeah.
I mean, he can be that guy. I really believe he can be an every down back, especially in today's game. Mm-hmm. The way it's more of a finesse game.
Yeah.
It's more of a spread out game. Defenses aren't big thumpers. I mean, it's all about speed. I think Kamara can definitely be the every down back. I think the question I have, and I mean, I'm kind of getting the cart before the horse here, but I mentioned it before we came on the air. I don't know what they do with Mark Ingram after this season.
Yeah.
Because you're going to pay Mike Thomas at some point in the next year and a half, and he's going to get one of the biggest contracts, I think, in the history of the franchise, non-Drew Brees. Can you afford to pay Ingram and Mike Thomas and knowing you're going to pay Kamara probably down the road? I don't know what they're going to do.
I would, just my feeling, I'm leaning towards probably not right now. Now, he goes on a tear these next 12 games, and it's clear they need him, especially in the playoffs, especially got to go outdoors, whatever the case may be. Then I could see him coming back. That is man, you're right. I'm right on the edge with that because I don't know. I think it's a realistic scenario that I'm sure they've discussed, but which way do you go? I don't know.
I could see them offering him a deal, and if somebody beats him to it,
yeah.
But they do make an offer to him. And if he gets a better
29 in December, is that correct?
Yeah, if he gets 29? A better deal, he gets a better deal. So at least they've extended him an offer. If he wants to come back. Mark Ingram might want to come back here and be in this system. I don't know, as long as Brees is here. But he also know guys are going to want to get paid. He's 29. He's going to want to make as much money as he can.
This is it for him. I mean, 2 or 3 year deal.
This is his next contract. Yeah,
that's it for him. So
and that happens a lot in this league. We've seen it happen with Saints players over and over. Robert Meacham, they move on for whatever reason. They get paid, and then sometimes they come back.
Happens a lot.
Jimmy Graham, you got traded.
It nearly happened.
Yeah, you get paid, you come back. I don't know. I'm interested to see how he runs. I agree with you. I think he's going to carry the ball. One thing I want to get to before we move on to the colleges, though, one thing I'm concerned about, the Giants kind of did a good job of taking Mike Thomas out of the game. They bracketed him, especially in the red zone. He was not going to get the ball down there, and no one really stepped up. Ted Ginn didn't step up. Cam Meredith made a play here or there, but do you all think that's a long-term problem, or do you think it was just a one-game issue?
Name a guy that stepped up throughout the season other than Michael Thomas. I mean, I know Gins had a couple catches here and there, but I think that's a legitimate concern that you don't have a player that, in the passing game at least, other than Kamara, that can really, get downfield and make plays when Mike Thomas is clearly bracketed or they're clearly trying to take him out of the game. I think that's a legitimate concern. I really do, because I think the tight end position, the lack of productivity there is real. And then you look at the wide receiver spot, I think we keep waiting for Cam Meredith, and I just feel like by now he should have it. He should be there by now.
I agree with you.
And I'm ready for them to unleash Traquan Smith, because I think he's ready to explode. I'm ready for Traquan Smith to come out.
The light's got to come on.
Play a game.
Yeah, he's due. I mean, he's got ability. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it. But it's tough, man. He's a rookie coming in the NFL.
Deuce was telling me, he said,
a lot coming at him.
The regular season, there's a difference. You play in a preseason, you're kind of going with it. In the regular season, they throw a lot at you. It's like physics coming at you, and it's game plan, and it's this matchup, this formation, that split. It's a lot. Perhaps it's a little overwhelmed right now. Hopefully, it loosens up a little bit here in the next couple of weeks.
And maybe it's one of those things, too. We talked about it with Marcus, with Davenport as well. Because, we're talking about, is he trying too much to, digest what he's learning now, what he's trying, what his matchup is, what his technique is, all these things. And he's not going out and playing.
It's a step slow.
He looks a step slow because he's thinking about it too much. He's trying to think about what is supposed to be the play I'm supposed to make, because I don't want the coaches, in my crawl. Maybe it's the same thing, too, of just look, if there are a couple plays that, that he can run better than anybody else, get a couple of those plays in the game. Let him get a couple touches, or at least, hopefully, if anything. And, you got to give it to Mike Thomas. Obviously, they're going to be on him because he deserves that. He warrants that as a top number one receiver in the league. But, if you got a guy like Traquan Smith, he has at least a couple plays, get him involved twice, and then who knows? Maybe things start opening up, and then before you know it, you've got a play come through, and he's launching going straight deep, but there's nobody on him.
And I'll say this. As much as they bracketed Michael Thomas, he stepped up with some big third down conversions at the end of that game. So as much as they had him bottled up, he stepped up when they needed him.
He is a man.
He's unbelievable. He and Kamara both are remarkable in that the first guy hardly ever gets them down.
Never.
And we're talking about good defensive players can't get those guys down. They're both phenomenal. This is a very unique season so far, because usually the Saints spread the ball around. Everybody's got their
That's always
their
been
touches.
Drew's thing.
But, man, this year it is a two-headed monster. And everybody else is just kind of watching.
And it's a shame because
it's two guys.
There's an opportunity there for somebody to step
anybody.
Up. It's there. Take it.
And let's not worry about
Take it. And I can understand if you're Sean Payton and you're frustrated right now because, guys, here's your chance. This is it. You have it. Somebody rise to the occasion, and you become the number 2 receiver, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I think this team next year drafts a receiver pretty high, or goes out and gets another guy in free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if this was Ted Ginn's last year. I get the sense.
I think Peyton's getting a little.
I get the sense he's at the end of his rope with him, and there's nothing. Nobody's told me that. I just see it. He does all the things that Sean Payton doesn't like. He drops it, untimely drops, the muff kickoff return. He has a few penalties here and there. He gets a holding. It's just enough things that are sloppy. That's not Peyton. But every once in a while he makes an incredible play, and everybody
he's been able to survive his entire career off that. Yeah. The one big play he makes in a game or every other game is enough to warrant the mistakes. Mm-hmm. But I think that I agree with you, Jeff, because we haven't seen the big play yet.
Right.
We haven't seen it yet. We've seen a few shorter plays. We haven't seen the big play, which Ted Ginn Jr. is known for.
All right, well, let's talk real quick before we move on. I keep saying that, but let's talk about the Redskins. This is a team. I like the Saints matchup with them. Defensively, I think Washington is going to be pretty stout. They're underrated defense. They don't have anybody that blows you away name-wise. There are no huge stars. There's no Luke Kuechly or Khalil Mack, but they're very solid defensively. Offensively, the thing I like about them, when you play the Saints, you want dominant receivers. You want what the Bucs have or what the Falcons have, because you can take advantage of the Saints' coverage liabilities. Right. That's not the case of the Redskins. Their receivers don't scare you. Their leading receiver is Chris Thompson, the running back. They got a good tight end, Jordan Reed. Obviously, they have Adrian Peterson, who's coming back to town. But I like the matchup for the Saints as long as their linebackers and safeties can guard the tight end and the running backs out of the backfield, which sometimes has been a problem for the Saints.
That's not always easy to do, and I think you even saw that a little bit In the Giants game, those tight ends were finding those soft holes in the zone. I'm curious to see, because it was clear against the Giants, the Saints were bailing on coverage so quickly they were not going to get beat.
Nobody was getting over the top.
You don't necessarily have to do that in this game. So I'm curious how they approach an Alex Smith-led offense where you may have to guard the intermediate route and shorter routes a little bit better. I'm just curious to see how it shakes out.
Well, it makes sense because you wonder, how do you do that containment? Obviously not getting beat deep, but like you're trying to contain and keep everything in front of you, while also at the same time trying to get some kind of pass rush.
Right.
Get through, because it's like, well, it's one thing, it's like, okay, well, if we're going to worry about containment, then go from there, and that's fine. But then it's like, from there, how are you going to try to generate enough of a pass rush to at least get somebody in Alex Smith's face?
Yeah, Alex Smith is an underrated athlete, too. I mean, the Saints have learned that in the past. He's a guy who can get outside the pocket and make plays happen. This is going to be a test for the Saints defense a little bit as far as their, ability to contain, like Clyde said. And also I think their linebackers and safeties are going to get tested with this good running game and Chris Thompson out of the backfield. That guy is an underrated player. If Chris Thompson played for the Saints, he'd be great.
Oh,
coming out of the backfield.
That'd be a Sean Payton bag.
Yeah, he would blow that kid up and make him a big-time player. The rest of the receiving core, Josh Doxson, Jamison Crowder, Paul Richardson, Louisiana Tech guy, Michael Floyd.
Wow. That's right, they did pick him
up. Yeah, remember that guy?
Yeah. And they got a great left tackle. Little trivia for you. Trent Williams played high school football with Chris Ivory. I remember Chris Ivory telling me that Trent Williams was a complete beast in high school with him. So left tackle is going to be a big-time matchup because Trent Williams is very good, and he'll be going against the rookie.
Okafor and
Davenport. He's starting to show some flashes. All right, let's move on to the college ranks because we've really concentrated on that Saints game. It's a big game, rightfully so, but we also got a couple big games in college this week. I'm flying down early tomorrow morning. I'm going to call both of you guys because I got to be up at like 5 a.m.
Please don't.
Wake you all up. I'm flying down to Florida. I love going down to the swamp, though. Florida against LSU. For whatever reason, LSU seemed to play very well against Florida the last 10 years or so. I know they lost in Tiger Stadium a few years ago, but I think this is a tricky game for LSU.
Yes.
There's the big Georgia matchup, a top 5 matchup at Tiger Stadium. LSU's been kind of cruising along. Florida, they lost that game to Kentucky, and everybody was like, oh, my gosh, they're not very good. Well, Kentucky's turned out to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know who's good. You said that.
I pick against them every week, and I'm picking against them this week.
That's a terrible call, man. I'm telling you.
But I can't believe Kentucky's good, but they obviously are good.
They're good.
So that loss doesn't look so bad.
No.
Now I'm starting to think this could be a very dicey, tricky game for LSU.
Completely agree. I'm concerned. It's a trip to the swamp. It's daytime. It's going to be hot. And look at the history of this game. A little like the Saints in Washington. It's always a little weird. Last year, remember, was the missed extra point. The year before that, it was, they should have been worse, from Jim McElwain.
Yes.
Florida, the gap between Florida and LSU to me is not that far. LSU's a little further along. But it's the exact type of setup, if LSU's not careful, could be primed for an upset because of the big game next week. I don't think they're overlooking. I think they did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I agree.
think they did a pretty good job of focusing. But I just think matchup for matchup-wise, strength on strength, I think this is going to be a pretty good game. And in my opinion, kind of a phone booth type game where you play in the phone booth, smash mouth.
I like that.
Low-scoring game.
Sounds like a hammer and nails.
Yeah, hammer and nails type game.
Who's the hammer and who's the nail again?
Wasn't it LSU Florida?
It was LSU Florida.
This one too?
So it was LSU Florida, yes.
I think this is going to be an interesting game. I think the spread is now, 2?
Something like that,
That's pretty
That's a
pretty
weird
accurate.
Spread, by the way.
Nah.
It's weird. What do you think,
feels
Clyde?
normal.
I think it's going to be a close game.
I disagree. I don't disagree wholeheartedly. I think you're right. I think matchup for matchup, strength for strength, I think this is the closest that LSU is going to come to seeing almost a NFL caliber like offense and defense on the other side. Like literally match for match, speed for speed, power for power. I think this is the closest that they're going to come to seeing that in Florida. However, after watching and after seeing most of the bulk of that Florida game against State, I realized that, going back for both Dan Mullen and Scott Strickland, going back to Mississippi State after Strickland left first and then Strickland brought Mullen over to Florida. I understand that, you're going up against Nick Fitzgerald, who's still a quality back. That game, I think, is going to be one for LSU that's going to be a banana peel. But
State?
Yes, Mississippi State. Because I think they played Florida about as well as they could, and I don't have any faith in Florida's offense to get anything going. I think, if anything, Dan Mullen's going to go into this game feeling like, if I can just hold them to, like, field goals, I'm going to be good. Because I have no faith in my offense, and I have no faith in Felipe Franks. Because we talked about that. That also was like, remember when Felipe Franks, when he left the recruiting class, everybody freaked out because LSU wasn't going to have a quarterback. I'm looking at this guy, and I can't. If you're an LSU fan, you look at how he's playing and being like, I think he kind of dodged a bullet.
Oh, no doubt. I think that all the time.
Bullet here, man.
He was overrated.
He was overrated coming out, and you're seeing this now.
Passes the eye test.
Exactly. But Dan Mullen doesn't have anything else to do. So at this point, you're just looking at a side who I think is going to go in, play all out on defense, and hope that they can hold Joe Burrow to very few yards on the ground. Obviously, whatever you can get through the air, not anything big, especially on the ends with Stephon Sullivan and Race McMath and those guys. But it's literally going to be hold them one time, and I'm telling you, our offense is going to get one quick strike, and that's going to be the game.
Yeah, but if I'm Steve Ensminger, I'm telling Joe Burrow, do not turn it over.
That's it.
Yes.
I mean, if they don't give them anything easy, I think LSU can win. You just can't turn it over, and Joe Burrow really hasn't done much of that so far.
I think the offensive line for LSU is key. They're getting healthier.
Yeah.
I think that's key. Remember last year they started those free freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
True freshmen in that game.
Yes.
And I was a little concerned because I thought Cole Smith was going to have to start at center over Cushenberry, but now he's healthy enough to go. Offensive line is key. If they are stable at the offensive line, protect the football, even if it's 16-13, so be it. I think they come away with a victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be one of these games.
Absolutely.
Don't you all think? Like, it's going to be in the teens. I can't see anybody getting into the 20s in this game.
Yeah, unless the wheels fall off, and then we're talking about, where was this Florida offense the last 3 weeks? Where was this LSU offense after the Miami game? That kind of thing. And that's the only way I can see it. But I agree with both of you. It's going to be another one. It's going to be in the same vein of that Auburn game, except way, way, way better defense for longer stretches than what we saw in that game.
Well, the one thing I worry about a little bit is I feel like this game's way more important for Florida than it is for LSU.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, this is like kind of a big game for Florida. I feel like LSU, they've got all their big games are coming up, and they've already had a big one against Auburn. They had a big one against Miami, and it could get lost in that, and that's what I worry about. Like, you find a motivated opponent at home, and you're in a dogfight. I don't know.
All LSU has to do is look at last year. I mean, that game was not easy.
No.
That game was a dogfight.
Yeah,
and again, missed the extra point, got them that victory. So, and it's just been kind of a chippy rivalry. So, I'm not worried about a lack of focus. I'm not worried about them overlooking. I'm just worried about if somehow the offensive line has a hole in it and Burrow is sacked and there's a sack fumble or perhaps a pick. Then that could be. I think that's the only route to victory for Florida.
That's fair. Yeah, and specifically with that, it's like, the last couple times that LSU's gone to Florida, usually it's come down to a kicker, and obviously for the first time, you have a kicker or should I say, for the first time since Colby Delahousse, you have a kicker who feels like could go on the road and make a clutch kick when they absolutely have to have it.
I believe that's Ice Tracy.
Ice Tracy. Yes, that is who it is.
Hat tip to Clyde on that great nickname. And I'm going, by the way, my nickname for Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, because I think him walking down the Tiger walk with those aviator shades on, he looks like something right out of, my alter ego.
Top Gun?
He's just
Top Gun.
Really, really good decision maker. Even if it's choosing to throw the ball away, he always seems to make the proper, appropriate football play on the field. And I think as he's getting better and better, we saw what happened last week when it kind of all comes together. So props to Burrow.
Weather forecast, 91 degrees high, 64% humidity. It's going to be hot.
So you're telling me that the weather forecast for Saturday at 2:30 on CBS is hell.
Yes, it's going to be hot. It's going to be a swamp. And look, LSU, Tommy Moffitt, he's great at getting those guys in great condition.
They're getting hydrated.
The fourth quarter against Auburn, LSU was the stronger team. It's going to be a great game, though. Always fun.
Have you been there before?
Yeah, I've covered a bunch of games.
That is the closest I've ever seen a major stadium with the stands are right on top of the field. I mean, there is no room to grow.
And they start doing that Gator chomp. It's an intimidating place to play. It'll be a big home field advantage for the Florida Gators. And speaking of underrated home field advantages, Nippert Stadium. Clyde, Sean, have you all ever been there?
No, I have not.
It is a great venue.
Soccer venue, yes. FC Cincinnati plays there.
That's
right.
It's one of the
huge
best
40,000 plus. They're going to MLS
underrated
next year.
venues in sports. I'm telling you,
Clearly.
it's got this brick facade. It's got this ivy and stuff. It's just a cool place. That's where Tulane. I'm boasting my NOLA Brewery Tulane Greenway beer shirt on. Tulane, who I've got to just extend my apologies to because I totally discounted them against Memphis, and they dominated Memphis last week. That was, I think, the biggest win of Willie Fritz's tenure at Tulane as a huge win. Now Tulane's in first place in the West Division at the AAC. I didn't see it coming. They had this crazy pass rush. They were sacking Memphis. I think they had like 6 or 7 sacks.
Justin McMillan comes in for what, like your clip rating at pretty much 1 pass, 51 yards, touchdown.
I'm starting to wonder, like, do they need to start getting him some more touches in the game? But what did y'all think of that Memphis win? I didn't see it coming. I thought they possibly could win the game, but not dominate them.
That's where I'm at. And I was tough on Tulane because I thought
everybody, apparently the entire Fox 8 crew
felt like that first week's loss to Wake Forest. I just felt like they were too casual about being close. No, you got to get to that standard you want to be. And you got to hold yourself to that. And it just felt like they were being a little too casual. But I thought that win was phenomenal. And I mean, we're watching. It was on a Friday night, so I'm in the midst of high school football, and we're just hearing touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. They've got some explosive playmakers on that offense that could really be used to an advantage for Tulane if they play it right. I thought it was a huge win. I thought it was a galvanizing win. But it's all about what you do from here on out. Don't make that be the highlight of your season. Let that be the turning point, not the highlight of your season.
Well, I really felt like for Fritz it was a big win because they needed some momentum. They'd lost momentum, the UAB game. They lose this. But this is a huge challenge. Cincinnati's, unbeaten, right?
They are.
They've obviously got things going in the right direction up there. Cincinnati always has that potential. I mean, basically, they're the Tulane of Ohio to Ohio State, and there's a lot of good football players in Ohio. They've had a lot of guys. I mean, every once in a while, I don't know about you all, but, like, you're watching NFL games, there's like a ton of Cincinnati dudes. And Connor Barwin, Vinny Curry, you go down these lists.
It's a very underrated football sport.
Right. They put out a lot of players.
And that's obviously credit to Luke Fickell for going in and being able to, get Cincinnati back to a level where they should be. There's a lot. You're right. There's a lot of talent, so much in Ohio, and obviously that's credit to him for being able to get Cincinnati in the American where it is right now.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to be a big challenge, especially after that big win, for them to go up there and try and beat Cincinnati, who's unbeaten. But, man, if they could steal a win up there, that would be impressive. But, again, I'm telling you, Nippert Stadium, not easy place to play.
That's not going to be an easy game for Tulane. And, honestly, I'm not sure I could pick a victory for Tulane in this one because I just think Cincinnati's that much better than them.
They're very good.
But it's funny. How close did this game become? Tulane facing Cincinnati and their quarterback, Joe Burrow. He almost chose Cincinnati.
Right. Great point. So, and you know what? That wouldn't have been a bad choice.
It would not have been a bad choice.
They've got to go in the right direction. I mean, he could have been a guy. But, man, Joe Burrow's been heaven sent for LSU.
He really has been.
Exactly.
There are a lot of quarterbacks in Ohio.
He did what's best for himself, too, because to do this at LSU, what he's doing, I think carries a little more weight.
Cincinnati's no worse for the wear.
And you can also see why Ohio State went with Haskins. I mean, the kid's like a Heisman Trophy candidate.
No doubt.
So it kind of has worked out for everybody involved. And Haskins is going to end up being a phenomenal player, and I think Joe Burrow is exactly what LSU needed. And, Sean, you just led us right in to our pick segment here, our Fearless Forecast, as we always do. And you know what? I'm starting to believe that Clyde might be the best picker here. I hate to admit it, but, like, he's always
I'm so good. I don't take it to Vegas.
I'm pretty sure I picked the Dolphins to beat New England.
And what did I tell you?
And you were right, and I was like talking trash. That this was going to be a bad year for the Patriots. And then
it still might be, but like
what I was
that
thinking.
Game. And it still might be.
Carolyn just coldly called me on it too.
Naturally, what's she going to do?
But I was wrong about that. But let's get into the college picks. LSU is a 2-point favorite at Florida. I didn't realize that. I thought they were 2-point underdogs. I got to go with Florida. I'm taking Florida in that game. I think it's a tricky game. I think LSU could win, but maybe win by 1 point.
I'm going Bayou Bengals because if they win, it's going to be by at least by a game-winning field goal.
Exactly.
2 points is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah,
it could be a close game. They win and they actually cover. So I'm going LSU 17-13.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going with LSU on this one too. I think it's going to be. They're going to win by at least a field goal or more, and it's going to be one of those games where you go to the fourth quarter Florida's going to be on the back foot. They're going to be trying to do whatever they can to get back into the game. By the time that they do that, LSU's offense is going to, in my opinion, especially with Brissett, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and with Joe Burrow, I think they're going to try to run the clock out anyway and they end up winning the game.
All right. I guess we're a little different on that pick, but I think we might be on the same on this one. Tulane is a 7.5-point underdog at Cincinnati. I doubted Tulane last week. I'm going with Tulane this week. I think they can lose by a touchdown, so I'm going with Tulane plus a 7.5.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's 11 o'clock game. It's 11 a.m. game.
That's crazy.
It's an early kick.
Tulane playing well, but somehow losing by like 10 based on I'm going Cincinnati.
Yeah, with absolutely no reasoning. He just
no reasoning.
I'm going with Cincinnati.
No, I mean
I'm going to Cincinnati.
I really do think this is a tough thing to
pick
because it's like 7.5. Tulane's got to win. They're feeling comfortable. Cincinnati's undefeated. You know what? I'm going to go with Cincinnati on this one too.
Wait a second. I'm not sure that's allowed.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
It's allowed.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
I'm going to be bringing this up in later junction.
Bring it up in 2 weeks.
I'm bringing this up in 2 weeks, no doubt about it. All right, and last but not least, Kentucky, who I keep putting on here so I can pick against them every week. They're 5.5-point underdogs at Texas A&M. That's a really weird game. They don't really play each other very much. I was actually having this conversation in the Saints locker room today with Larry Warford, who's a Kentucky grad, Saints guard, and he goes, I don't think we ever played Texas A&M when I was there. Kentucky is unbeaten right now, kind of crazy. They're 5.5-point underdogs. I can't pick Kentucky. I do it every week. I'm picking Texas A&M.
Don't worry. You finally actually made a solid quality pick.
Oh, you're going with me?
Yes, I am. I'm
what's your
Texas
reason?
A&M. Well, two things. Obviously, this game is in College Station.
Kyle Field, right?
For me, one of the best atmospheres in college football whenever they are more than decent to adequately good. But the only thing that I think that Texas A&M is going to be able to put together this week, and they have not been able to put together the last few weeks, I think they're going to have an answer for Benny Snell up front. I think they'll have an answer for him to be able to contain him. And I don't think that Kentucky, even if they win this game, I don't think that they're going to win by a lot. I just haven't seen that kind of Kentucky out of them yet, so I'm going with A&M in this one.
Yeah, I'm with y'all. I'm going to go with A&M. I think they're getting there. You're starting to feel it with Jimbo and that group. I think they're getting there, and I think it's a place Kentucky doesn't go very often. That atmosphere can overwhelm you.
Yeah, it can.
I'm going with the Aggies.
And I'm not sure. I would say this. I'm not sure Kentucky's played a top quarterback yet.
Yeah,
I mean, Fitzgerald's not been playing that well.
Yeah.
Florida. We talked about Franks. South Carolina. I mean, Kellen Mond's he can sling it.
Yeah.
So
he can.
That's a good point. You all make a really good point. I think Texas A&M could be a really good bet this week. All right, Saints minus 6.5. Big Monday night game against the Redskins. I'm taking the dang Redskins. I think the Redskins do not win the game, but I think they play this game close.
Right there with you. I think it's going to be something like a 33-30 type game.
Yeah, I can see
think
it.
Saints win, but 6.5 is too much. I'm going, I guess, in that scenario, Skins.
Yeah, I'm going Washington too. I hate it. I don't want to. I really want to pick the Saints. I really want to think that the Saints are going to win this by 2 scores, but you're right. It's probably going to be something like that. So
but nobody's picking the Redskins to win the game, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No.
That's the way I feel.
Get that on the record.
All right, a little bit getting ready to kick off here at NOLA Brewing Tap Room. We're getting ready to digest the Patriots-Colts game. The Patriots are 10-point favorites in that game against the Colts. I picked against the Patriots last week like an idiot. I'm picking the Patriots this week. I'm not making a mistake again. And mainly I'm picking against the Colts because I think the Colts are awful.
Yeah.
So I'm picking mainly saying the Colts are going to be so bad the Patriots win easy.
Did I read the stat right? Tom Brady has never lost on Thursday Night Football?
I don't know. Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. I saw that.
Yes, that's true.
I think they smoke them. I think it's a blowout. I'm going with New England.
Here's the bad part if you're a Colts fan. After witnessing what happened just this past Sunday, knowing full well that you at least look. I mean, Frank, right? I think you give him credit for saying we're not playing for ties, we're playing for the win. But in that situation, though, you're still not. That's still not a great play call. Like you're still not doing your team like any service by at least not giving them a chance to like really get that first down. So now you've got that loss in your record to a team that was previously winless in the Texans, and now that's not going to help you going forward because that's going to be the last thing that people remember. Specifically when you're talking about Andrew Luck and whether or not he can throw 15 yards down the field right now. So I think at this point you have no choice but to think that the Patriots are going to roll in this game. Specifically like we were talking about, you'll have Edelman and Gronk both in the starting line for the first time.
And Josh Gordon.
And Josh Gordon. That was the thing, too. Like, this was something I heard today. I think it was on NFL Live about the idea that, like, it always seems that the Patriots have, like, one really big deep threat, one medium threat, and then Gronk. It's hard to stop. It's hard to beat. So, yeah, the Patriots.
All right, we're in unison on that. Last game, Falcons. The dreaded Atlanta Falcons are 3-point underdogs at Pittsburgh. You got two teams that are kind of floundering right now.
Oh, boy.
Both of them need it.
I don't know if the Falcons are going to win another game. They had a chance to win that game last week at home.
No,
the
they're going to win
Bengals
another game.
choked it away.
They did do
I'm
that.
telling you, they're in trouble. They're in big-time trouble. I think the Steelers blow them out.
It goes to show you how close that line is between 3-1 and 1-3. Look at how close the game was against the Saints and last week against the Bengals.
Yeah.
I'm going Steelers, too. I don't know if it's a blowout, but I think they definitely cover the 3-point spread.
Steelers got to get their act together, man. They need a game to get right.
Yeah, no Le'Veon Bell. I mean, Ben looked as bad last week as you could probably think he's ever looked. You know, all this talk swirling about Antonio Brown and whether or not there's all this commotion in the locker room. And there's just so many things with the Steelers that you feel like you don't hear when it comes to the Steelers, like all this internal combustion. That just feels like, especially under Mike Tomlin, who's very, we play the game that's on the schedule, all that kind of stuff. I just feel it's weird. That's why I'm picking the Falcons in this one. I just don't feel like right now for the Steelers that they're going to be able to get enough positive momentum to, like, really, if anything, get past the Falcons. And I think the Falcons break the snide, but who would have thought that we'd be talking about the Falcons at the very bottom of the NFC South?
I got a bad feeling about this because whenever Clyde picks against me, he wins.
That's true.
Every time.
Every time, man. It's crazy.
So I'm glad that he picked Texas A&M this week. Makes me feel a lot better. All right, before we wrap up here, and it's been a great night. We got a great crowd out here at NOLA Brewing. The tap room is rocking. We are going to partake in some of these free wings tonight.
They probably love
some of the great beer. But before we do that, you guys, as we always talk about at Fox 8, unbelievable coverage. And I got to tell you, your colleagues went the extra mile this week. We were over in New York, and they drove over Juan Kincaid and Edwin Good.
Yeah.
Drove all the way over from New Jersey to meet me in Manhattan to film the pregame show, which is not an easy drive, as we all know. You got to go through the tunnel. They get over there. We're in downtown Manhattan. They're trying to find the hotel. We finally found a spot where we could record it for the pregame show because it was such a weird time.
Yeah.
But you guys got all kinds of stuff going on every night broadcasting on Fox 8. So give us the lineup.
Yeah, well, tonight there's Thursday Night Football. Tomorrow we have our Fox 8 Football Friday, which is our prep show from 10:30 to 11. Sunday, this week there's no tailgate show because obviously the game's on a Monday, but we normally have our tailgate from 10 to 11, and then which you're on all the time, and then final play from 10:30 to 11 Sunday night. This week, Monday, we'll have the Saints pregame show. But normally we'd have the Black and Gold review show, which was Tuesday this week with Deuce, Juan, and myself. Normal Tuesday night show is our Fox 8 overtime show from 10:30 to 11.
Right, that's a cool show.
It's a fun show to do. It's kind of like this.
Yeah.
Kind of sit around and talk.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday is our game plan show. We kind of get you ready for the matchup that's coming with the Saints from 10:30 to 11 as well.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
Wall-to-wall coverage.
So tune in at 10:30. You'll find
What is it like to sleep? Do you guys sleep? Because
I
I
try to.
It's basic.
But you know what, man? This is football season.
That's
This
what
is
we
what
do.
we live for,
That's
right?
what we do.
We're always dying in the off season,
It
except
is.
for Clyde, who's a big, soccer fan and all over the Premier League. And we'll talk about that in a future pod because there's lots to talk about in that regard. But tonight's all football, and we're going to wrap it up by thanking everybody here. Our NOLA Brewing crowd, as always, Doug Wallner, Dylan Lintern, C.J. Solomon, and, of course, Jamie Dowd, who does a great job here in marketing.
Who was looking over for her name and everybody.
Yes,
and all
as
that
well.
kind of stuff.
And
Not like we noticed.
Nikki Sedaris,
Not like we're
who always
noticing.
does a great job here, and who had premium sticker placement tonight, by the way, on our backdrop.
Very good.
Luke Augusta, the best engineer in the business.
Who's ready to run out of here?
And all of our great NOLA comrades. I see Izzy Gould here. Of course, Bonnie
Luke's here.
Mulholland, Mike Chauvin, Michelle Tuggle, who does a great job and Save the Day with Fred the dog on Monday night over in Bay St. Louis. Speaking of, we'll be back in Bay St. Louis at the Balcony Sports Lounge on Monday night. We'll get you over there one
Not
night.
this
St.
Monday
Louis?
night, 2
Nice.
Monday nights from now.
That's right.
2 Monday nights.
I forgot about that. Thank you, Clyde.
We'll be in the Dome on Monday.
Monday night, we won't be there. The next Monday night, great viewing area, great food, great sports viewing, and also great cocktails over there. We might get you over there one night, Sean,
it a shot.
for the Dat Chat.
Good stuff.
Not that you're working every night anyway. But we're going to wrap it up by saying everybody come out to NOLA Brewing this week. Choptoberfest is coming up here at NOLA Brewing Tap Room, and McClure's Barbecue will always be serving great barbecue as well. And we're going to go partake in some of this great food and drink and catch some of the Colts-Patriots games. So thanks for listening, and join us here next week at the NOLA Brewing Tap Room for Dat Chat. Thank you.